Hello, everyone. This is Inside the HR Advisory World, a podcast to help you discover how HR consultancies work and how you can also figure out if this is something that you want to do. In this episode, I am joined by Joanne Wells, the Managing Director of Hanoli HR. She's founded this consultancy after more than 3 decades of experience in offering HR advice across industries like retail, housing, and manufacturing. Joanne, I'm pleased to welcome you to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really honoured to be asked. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I do have 4 questions for you based off your experience. The first question to you is, now, since you have supported both corporate teams and smaller businesses, I want to really understand what mindset shift has really helped you when you moved from in-house HR into running your own consultancy.
Crikey. I think the biggest mindset shift, and actually one that probably I'm still working on, if I'm being honest, is shifting your thought process from being an employee into being a business owner, and being really upfront about that. That is something that even where I'm now 3 years into my consultancy and self-employed journey, it's still something that I find I have to work on. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest shift, that I am now in charge of my own destiny, which is lovely, but I'm also responsible for it as well. So it's my job to bring in the work, to make sure that I'm earning enough. And yeah, learning to not be reliant on a regular monthly salary and the benefits that go with that. But the benefits of working as a self-employed consultant are outweighing that at the moment.
And I mean, of course, it would be really, I guess, satisfying to be your own boss,
Very
not
much.
rely on someone to pay your bills and just listen to instructions because you're directing the instructions now.
Absolutely.
Now, this is based off a post that you had shared on LinkedIn about a year ago. So you had shared that you've really enjoyed doing associate work and you found your rhythm within a strong HR network.
Yep.
So for someone who is just starting out in consulting, how would you recommend finding what kind of work actually suits them?
Oh gosh, bloody hell, that's a really good question as well. Gosh. So I think for me, so if I answer it sort of explain the paths that I took or the steps I took. So for me, doing associate work for other established HR consultancies, there was a few things to that. One, with all respect, it was fairly straightforward, fairly easy work, insofar as I didn't have to go out and get the clients myself. What I was doing is providing an additional resource to an established consultancy when they were busy or over, had a lot of work on and needed to get some extra resource, and they can do that by not having to have the burden then of an extra employee. So it suited me and it suited them. What it also gave me as well was that opportunity to still be part of a team, to still be part of a HR network as well, which I really enjoyed. But what it helped me to do was build my confidence in terms of being able to quickly establish relationships with clients that were already involved with the consultancy that I was working with. So they just saw me as an extension of that consultancy. Associate work, I don't think, is for everyone. Although, with that being said, I can see in the networks that I'm in that most consultants, when they're first setting out, do seem to lean towards associate work. And I think my view is, I think that's possibly because there's still that feeling of wanting to feel part of a team, maybe still feeling as though they're in the employed mindset, so they're going to go to somewhere that's established. But I still enjoy associate work. I still like it because it's you're helping your fellow HR community when they're, if they're in need of support. And I still like doing it. I still enjoy it. I have my own clients, but I still enjoy doing associate work as well. I hope that answered the question.
I would say dead, Joanne, yes. It's brilliant that, you're still staying true to your roots because that's how you started out and you're still doing associate work.
Yeah.
That's great. My next question to you is, when you look at the consulting landscape today, Hanoli HR is, of course, a much smaller player compared to some of the bigger firms out there. So what do you think truly sets Hanoli apart? And what do your clients get from you that they wouldn't find anywhere else?
It's the first answer to that question that comes to mind is me. I'm what sets Hanoli HR apart. And my clients get me. when they need that support. I say that a little tongue in cheek, but it's true. And as HR consultants, and there are many of us around at my, our size, maybe just working on their own, or maybe part of a team of one or two, or even slightly bigger. But ultimately, what I am about, and indeed my fellow HR consultants who are operating in the same way as me, is we offer a much more commercial, personal, pragmatic approach to managing people matters and people issues. You don't necessarily get that from some of the bigger players. You will always get from the bigger players absolutely correct advice, absolutely correct, legislation interpretation, no problem at all. But what sets me and indeed others apart, and this is for somebody coming into this area to think about, is it's that personal touch. And we will also help support the business owners in making a commercial decision, a pragmatic decision. What we won't do, well, I'll speak for myself on this, but in general terms, what we don't do is tell you what to do in terms of you must do this. Certainly what I do is say, okay, here's what you want. You've told me what you want to achieve with this particular situation. If you do this, this may happen. If you do this, this may happen. But ultimately, Mr. Business Owner, Mrs. Business Owner, you run the business, and so you have to own the decision. But I will help you get there in as risk-free way as possible and mitigate as much of the risk of any comeback as much as possible. But much in the same way that I don't expect somebody to tell me how to run my business, I don't tell my clients how to run their business. I support them in making some really difficult business decisions.
Understood. It's essentially about, getting to know what your client's business is like and adapting
Absolutely.
your advice to it, and then just letting them make the decision on their own.
Yeah, because although employment law is very clear, it is
Yeah,
not a one-size-fits-all. So
it's true.
there are many grey areas when you're actually applying the legislation to whatever scenario you are facing.
That makes a lot of sense, John. And I'm glad you could share USP of Hanoli with us. Now, the last question for you is now this is my favorite question out of the lot. You are a certified counselor, and you even offer free sessions through Hanoli Wellbeing to people who might not otherwise be able to access this support. So, how has that training, into being a counselor and your work through Hanoli Wellbeing influenced the way you approach your day-to-day HR consulting duties?
Okay, another great question. So I think that I would always consider myself to be very empathetic. I feel as though I'm very compassionate. I feel as though I'm approachable, I'm friendly, but also, I can be quite tough, and I can be quite pragmatic and commercially minded if I need to be, especially if I'm supporting a client to make a difficult decision. I think what I found over the years, however, is the whole reason I went into HR in the first place, or personnel as it was known back then, was to help people. And I think if you speak to most HR professionals, they will agree that that's why we get into this particular area of work. It's because we want to help people, and we want, whether that's supporting the business or whether it's supporting employees, but it's to help people. It's a people function. I think what I've seen over the years, and again, perhaps others will agree, is that the function of HR has very much changed, and it's very much a business function now, which is great, which is fine, and as it should be, because HR should very much be seen as a strategic partner to the business. But I think along the way, in some ways, it then perhaps can lose the compassionate side, maybe. But us people in HR are not losing our compassionate side. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a personal trauma that led me to retrain as a counsellor, or to get my qualification as a counsellor, because I felt as though I could, using counselling skills, still be able to offer that care and that compassion within the HR arena. Two other things I'd like to say about that. The main area that I'm going to focus on with my counselling qualification is to offer a safe, reflective, therapeutic space for the HR profession, because the HR profession are the ones that take on the emotional burden of the organisation. When anything to do with people having problems or going through a tough time, or if the business is restructuring, whatever it might be, HR are at the heart of that, helping everybody, dealing with everybody's emotional fallout, be it the business owner, be it the employees. But in terms of us as people and as employees, there's nobody there necessarily thinking about us and holding space for us. So I intend to use that skill of the unique skill, the unique position I'm in, to be a qualified counsellor and to have 3 decades of HR experience, because I uniquely understand where the HR professionals sit when they're dealing with difficult things. So that's one aspect of it. But you picked up on the free counselling. There's this whole new batch of counsellors that are coming through the system year on year,
Of
and
course.
they need to get experience. They need to be able to get placements, to be able to get their qualifications. And what I wanted to do as a way of giving back to my community in Bury is to offer some of those students from my local college a placement. And that's how we're able to provide the counselling free, because them students volunteer, or trainees, they volunteer. And therefore that means there is that no cost can be passed on to the community. So again, it's a bit of giving back. It's a bit of, contributing to my community as well, and making sure that mental health support, mental well-being is incredibly important to me, having gone through some challenges myself.
Hmm.
So that's why it's something that's really important to me.
That's actually a really great answer, Joanne.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy that, it's not just the people that are receiving the counseling that you're supporting, but also students from Bury. And I
Exactly.
do work with someone at the moment who is doing a similar course, and he
Okay.
did mention, that he has been volunteering. So it's really happy to see that, you might be one of the people that he might potentially work with.
Hope so. Hope so.
Yeah. And now, just to piggyback on the same question, would you say this counseling certification was difficult to achieve? And is this something that you would recommend to people that want to get into HR consulting?
I don't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily fit that you need to do it to get into HR consulting. And in actual
Hmm.
fact, if I might just digress a little, what I did realise through going through the qualification is just how very different the skills are. So if I
Hmm.
could just explain that. So as a HR consultant, a HR professional, HR expert, you are the expert in the room. You're the one that people look to give the
Yeah.
answers, to give the directions, to offer the solutions. Okay. And that's correct. And so when yes, you have to have the empathy and the caring side and the compassion. And because I have all that, I felt that this would be an easy move into counselling, and that it would be an easy qualification to achieve. Not the case. So that is not the case. So as a counsellor, and in my case, a person-centered counsellor, I am not the expert in the room. The client is the expert in the room. And so for me, I have to really, really learn. I had to really learn and try hard not to jump in with suggestions and thoughts and ideas as to what my client can do to make themselves better. So that was a massive learning curve for me. And again, one I will always be learning, because at 30 years in HR, it's hard to undo that natural instinct. I definitely think it is worth considering some kind of people related perhaps qualification, maybe, or maybe something around, say, mediation, a mediation qualification perhaps, or that, maybe that kind of stuff. But actually a counselling qualification and a HR qualification are actually sort of quite opposite. It is a difficult qualification to get. The last 2 years of the 4-year course is very intense, and especially the last year, very intense, especially when you're trying to get your 100 hours into, or under your belt so that you can qualify. It's very difficult. Yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted at all. Yeah.
I do understand it would have been quite difficult to manage Hanoli along with completing this certification.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very fine balancing act, but yeah, I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment. I take on things. I'm always liking to be busy. There's other things. I'm also a trustee of a mental health charity, so I've got all sorts going on.
I believe if you want to be in HR and if you want to really thrive, you have to be someone that, who gets a kick out of challenges and someone
Absolutely.
who really wants to push themselves.
A
That's really
hundred
good to
percent.
hear.
And you need to have very thick skin.
That's
Very,
true.
very thick skin. Yeah, definitely. But that doesn't mean you're infallible. I don't want to give the wrong impression. You can be strong and you can be resilient. You can develop a thick skin, and you need all those skills to be able to be a good consultant and advisor to business owners and so on. But that doesn't make you infallible. Self-care within HR is crucial, because otherwise you'll lead to burnout. The HR profession is risking burnout at the moment. So, we're still coming out of the back of COVID. We're still feeling the effects of that. COVID was a hugely challenging time for the HR sector. I know others as well, but the caring department, the people department can often be overlooked. So don't underestimate it, but take care of yourself.
Thank you for putting in that input as well, Joanne. And yes, it does get very challenging because there are
Yeah,
so many different issues that you have to deal with on a daily basis, and it's hard not to take them personally, even though it's
absolutely.
happening to someone else.
Correct. Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
And that brings us to the end of this conversation.
Oh, okay.
So, Joanne, thank you so much for your time and for being so open about your journey. It's been really insightful to hear how your values show up not just in your consulting work, but also in the well-being support that you provide. And, of course, it would have been a very challenging path, but I'm glad that you made that push because now you're supporting so many SMEs and you're also supporting students along the way.
Absolutely. Thank you so
And
much for asking me. I'm very honored that you asked me. I'm really pleased. Thank you.
I'm genuinely glad we met last week because I had been seeing your post for a while on LinkedIn. I wasn't sure how to reach out to you, and then you were just there in person.
Yeah, I have a tendency to do that. Well, listen, if there's anything ever that I can help you with in this shit you're going through, then, do let me know. And it's been lovely to talk to you. The questions were really interesting and really thought provoking. So thank you.
I'm glad you feel that way,
Yeah.
John. So for my audience, thank you for listening. If you wish to learn more about Joanne and Hanoli HR, I would attach the links to a LinkedIn page and the website on the description of this video. Feel free to comment your favorite takeaway from this conversation. And thank you once again, John.
So thank you very much. Enjoy your day.